You know, we've been talking so much about AI and its impact on our daily lives, and I think we'll all agree that it is really influencing the way we work, live, play, sometimes fall in love, and the way we shop. You know what I mean, right? Like when you shop online and you get a prompt immediately, since you liked this, you might want to try this. Or you watch something on Netflix, because you watched this, here's this recommendation. So it's all about offering that very personalized experience. And you're doing that in both your businesses, whether it's in the property sector or in fashion and retail. So Ankiti, I wanted to begin by asking you, just purely from a business sense, what is the advantage of offering that highly personalized experience to someone who's coming to Zilingo?
So I think, Mallika, when you think about AI, it's not just at the point of, although that's what's most visible, when the consumer is actually making the purchase. If you think about how consumption has changed over the last 5-10 years, you would go into a shop and try and buy something. Now it's not that. You are, an average Instagram user is spending 53 minutes on Instagram every day.
53 minutes
so
a day
you're constantly triggered, you're constantly looking at things that you may want to try and you may want to buy, but this is not happening in a store, which means that every business, every supply chain, every industry has to think in a predictive way rather than a reactive way.
Correct. Sometimes you all know what the consumer wants even before we know it.
Exactly.
Or at least it feels like it.
Kanye West tweets something, and then you're going to want it tomorrow in 12 hours. That's what I'm predicting, but you don't know it yet.
Yes.
So it's essential that we not just think about the last step where you are actually making the purchase, and think about really the whole supply chain and how AI can be used to make all of it more efficient, more predictive, and really just so much more effective in selling you what you want to buy.
Manav, how does a technology work? Can you demystify the process for us?
Interesting. Ankiti spoke about it. And property can't be more different from buying fashion, right? One is impulse driven and hope. You hope that you can show a customer something and they pick it up immediately. Whereas when it comes to property, it's probably the biggest financial decision that a lot of people make, right?
Correct. The investment is a little bit higher.
It is also a very, very big emotional decision, right? At least in the part of the world that we are right now.
Yeah.
So if you basically look at a property buying journey in this part of the world and across the world, right? There is a lot of friction and lack of trust between various parties, right? If you say a property seeker, a property agent, a developer, a bank, right? And this is where technology and AI especially can remove this friction, solve a lot of these trust issues. And that, as PropertyGuru, is our mission, right? We want to be the trust platform for property in this region. How do you make sure that as a user, the property that they're looking at, is a genuine property, right? The listing actually reflects the property correctly, right? How do you make sure that that if I was a property agent, right, I'm getting quality leads, and can you use again artificial intelligence to help match the right properties, right agents to customers, and then and help make the entire process friction-free from there onwards. So yeah.
So Ankiti, selling clothes is just a small part of your business. A big part of it is you've managed to get a lot of small retailers, stall owners in a market within the Zilingo umbrella, and you've exposed them to a global market. Right from a local market, you've really given them a global opportunity. How has AI helped you to do that, to offer these small businesses a global market?
So we think of ourselves as enablers. As digitization, when we started, as more and more digitization was happening, most companies, technology and capital were chasing, to make you download an app. And the question we asked ourselves is, who are the guys that are selling on these apps, and who's helping them do all the things that they need to do to be able to sell on these apps? And frankly, it was not a day one answer. It took us, it has taken us years to figure out all the things that they need, right? They need capital, they need analytics, they need a whole bunch of things. But what underpins all of it is data and AI, because the most important thing is to tell them what they should be sourcing and what they should be selling and to whom and from where, which meant us going really upstream, putting software in factories, putting software in yarn mills, matching that with predictive analytics, which I spoke about earlier, so that we could go to small merchants, big merchants. Now we work with brands all over the world and tell them quite definitively that not only will I provide you credit when you source SKU XYZ from our platform, I will give you somewhat of a buyback insurance, like a guarantee that if this does not work, I'm going to take it back. Now, to do that with any degree of confidence, AI is absolutely primary, essential to that process. Yeah.
Manav, you also have called yourself an enabler, someone who is working to solve problems. Can you explain that a little bit more?
I'll probably, deconstruct or try to do that. When I spoke about trust, right? For me, when you think about trust, right, it means relevance, right? It's very difficult for me to trust an experience, that's not relevant to me, right? Trust for me is reliability, right? Can this information be, every time I receive this information, is it the same, right? And the third thing is simplicity, right? Now, this is what we try to enable, in this place. So just to give you a few examples, and again, I spoke about how different fashion and buying a property would be, but then underlying technologies, what you're trying to do, right, is similar, but how you use it is very different, right? So you spoke about recommendations, what Netflix does, or what, say, for example, Amazon does, right? But in our case, right, when you think about recommending a property, you can't recommend one SKU or one property to a lot of people, because it's ultimately an inventory of one.
One, correct.
Right? So if you send 100 serious property buyers to one property, right, you create artificial competition, right? And mostly 99 of those buyers would be disappointed with one happy, property buyer. So this is where you basically use the same technology, the same algorithms differently, right? You tune them differently, you work with them differently to solve problems, A couple of examples, you spoke about enabling, right? For example, one big problem in property in Singapore more than other regions has been, the quality of images, right? And a couple of years back, when we first said we should do something about it, right? So basically, agents have been trained for a long time to kind of look at a property image as their personal, advertisement, right? They'll put their phone numbers, their pictures, right? But that doesn't necessarily result in better user experience in transactions, right? So that's where we started, using AI, right, to figure out the quality of these images and guide these agents to put in the right kind of images to make sure that the images, cover the entire property, right? Because that has an impact on the user experience that we've seen has an impact on how customers, engage with agents for inquiring about those properties, right? The other example, that I would give you is of a behavior that already exists, right? And property kind of AI better enables it. Is for example, how people search for houses. You walk around in a neighborhood, and you're looking at that building and say, I wonder if there is something available over there, right? Especially for me who came in from outside to Singapore 5 years back. That's how we decided my son's school, right? And then we went around the area as to what is available, right? But looking at a building you don't know, right? So we recently launched a product in Singapore. We call it PropertyGuru Lens. You take out your phone's camera, within the PropertyGuru app, point it at a building, and find out what's available for rent, what's available for purchase. So,
So we can't talk about AI and not talk about the big debate, which always comes up, the debate about jobs. Now, Ankiti, by getting involved with the small and medium businesses, what you have done is eliminate the middleman. Given the markets that you operate in, which is in Southeast Asia, can you really afford to do that, to remove a whole layer of jobs for people?
So I think, the way we think about it is that better data means more transparency, which means that we are now able to enforce regulations and compliance at the level of factories and yarn mills and make sure little children are not being exploited, women are being paid fair wages, there is health and sanitation at the workplace. So essentially that data and that transparency allows us genuinely to make the workplace a value-creating place for a lot of the workers. But like you rightly said, in the old school supply chain, agents, especially agents and the guys that are not adding that much value, but they're mainly middlemen, do get eliminated when you create this sort of transparency. And I think that happens industry after industry, and it happens every few years with advent of new technology. That always happens. And I think the challenge for companies and for governments is to think about how do you reskill and upskill people that will be left out because of this. And it's definitely not to vilify technology or progress in any way. Although we do see that happen, and we do see companies being demonized almost in a lot of these countries. But I think the way to go ahead is to upskill and reskill and really think about not just what's happening right now, but how AI will contribute to how the job market changes over the next few decades, and plan for it already.
I'm going to at this stage ask you all to take out your mobile phones because we have a poll, and which is going to lead me to the next question, which is, when we talk about AI, we talk about jobs, but the other issue that comes up all the time is privacy, right? Because if you're going to offer me a very personalized shopping or consumer-led experience, you have to know a lot about me. You need to know where I like my windows or my ceiling heights, and you need to know what clothes I want to wear. So if we can bring up the poll, I wanted to ask you, when you guys give up your data online, what is your biggest concern? What worries you most? Privacy or security breach? Spamming, because when you shop for a certain kind of product or you look up a holiday, before you know it, all the ads on your page are saying, why don't you go to the Maldives or why don't you go here? Spamming, or you don't care? Let's see. So data privacy and security breach, I thought they might lead the pack. So it looks like, biggest concern is security breach. Manav, do you want to take that? I mean, how do you safeguard my information? How do you make sure that data is safe? And whose responsibility is it? If you've taken my data, is it your responsibility to keep it safe?
First I would like to know who those 2% people were who don't care.
Who don't care. But we can have a poll about that later.
Yeah. No, but see, I as an individual, right, even before a technology executive, I'm very, very conscious of my data, right, my information, how I share it, and how it is used, right? And when we put ourselves in the shoes of these users, right, it is our responsibility to make sure that, one, we collect what we need, right, and we need that data to serve a customer's, need, right? So you gave an example of what kind of windows. There is more to that, right? When you're buying a property, what's your budget? How much, how much you're going to spend, right? Where are you looking to buy a house, right? You're calculating distances from your workplace, and you're calculating distances from, a school, right? So you're telling a lot about yourself, right?
Yes.
But in property, again, for you to make a good decision, for someone to be able to help you, make a confident property decision, where to buy, what to buy, you probably do need to share that information, right? Now, if you're sharing that information with choice, it is our responsibility to keep that information safe and always be aware that it is you own that information, right? Use it responsibly, save it responsibly. Both people said data privacy as well as security breach, and they go hand in hand, right? You're giving your information to someone who first needs to use it responsibly, and then have it safe so that other people who probably do not share your sense of responsibility cannot misuse it, right? So it's a big thing that at least we at PropertyGuru and I personally take very, very seriously.
I want to talk to you both about the convergence of the online and offline experience. Recently, we have seen a number of online retailers, set up a bricks and mortar store. This summer, I found myself in an Amazon book shop, like a physical shop, and that felt kind of strange to walk into an Amazon
Full
shop,
circle, yeah.
right? But it's happening. Are we going to see Zilingo, a store?
Well, never say never, but
tell us more.
I think what's critical is that we all think about how consumption and shopping as an experience will transform over the next few years. And we actually think that online and offline will definitely converge. It's not going to be online and offline. It's all going to be one experience, and you will be interacting with what you want to buy in many different ways, not just on your phone or in a store. And really, since majority of our business is about enabling brands do that better, we already support a lot of offline brands and businesses in really, procuring better, selling better, and in fact, even optimizing their inventory and their supply chain and things like that. We actually think that it's not at all far-fetched for the desire categories like fashion and beauty, etc., to actually be predominantly both online and offline, unlike buying milk and eggs, which maybe you don't want, you don't enjoy going to a grocery shop and you don't really look forward to it. But when you're buying cosmetics or you're buying fashion, the experience matters a lot. So it's all going to converge. There's going to be a lot of technology at the physical point of sale, but it's not necessarily all going to take place online in the way we think of it today.
Right, so that the experience is what's going to become important. And Manav, obviously both these worlds converge beautifully when it comes to buying a property. I'm curious, yes, AI can tell you so much about a particular flat, but do any transactions happen without someone going in and still knocking on the walls and making sure everything is okay?
I guess we are a little further away from that happening, right? I personally, for example, can't imagine myself living in a pod wearing VR glasses, and imagining that I live in a villa, right? Because, it's what I can experience a property virtually, I can't live in it virtually,
Good
right?
point.
And that is the reason why, buyers will continue to kind of, have that feel. They need that feel before they make a property decision, right? So, whether some of this choice can be offloaded, with the help of AI, whether, I could see virtual layovers of a property, even if it's under construction, and decide whether it is good for me or not. But, the final few that I would make a decision from, right? Our users, and, our user research says that, the market information that we gather says that, we very, very far away from there. Probably will never happen because, like I said, you can't live virtually, right? So
absolutely. Ankiti, there's a great deal of buzz about Zilingo being a unicorn. And two questions here. I know you don't like the label of a unicorn. Can you tell us why? And you've raised $308 million so far. There's a rumor that you're fundraising again. So I'll even go so far as to say there's another rumor that SoftBank may be interested. I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Look, I think to answer your first question, the reason I don't like the term, I mean, I don't necessarily not like it. I just think it's distracting for the people that are actually working in the company. And, there's a lot of glamour associated with tech startups and valuations and what it means, really. And sometimes what it means is actually completely lost. So we try to stay away from that. To answer your second question, actually, like you rightly said, we've just recently raised capital. We've spoken a couple of times, so you know that I'm thinking about the whole industry, the world. It's a $3.8 trillion industry, which is extremely fragmented, really inefficient. Unlike beauty or pharmaceuticals, or unlike most supply chains, fashion is still archaic, very not data-driven. And the way we think about it is it's a global market. It's very dependent on Asia. Data financing and software across SaaS across the supply chain can make a huge and material difference in the way we think about the supply chain. Now that's a huge goal, that's a huge ambition, and we've always believed in partnering with capital which has a vision, right? So really that can go long on some of these really ambitious thoughts and plans that we have. And so far, every investor we have had have been extremely supportive of that, and I actually really get along with investors that can see that long, which is where all these rumors come from. But yeah.
So, are you fundraising again?
No, not officially. No, we're
not officially, but unofficially.
But which tech startup is not always raising money, right? So.
Manav, your expansion plans. You are currently in 5 markets: Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. Which country is next for you?
One, we, as a company, right, our philosophy is not to plant flags, right? Each of these 5 markets that we operate in, right, are so unique. Different stages of economic maturity. The customer problems are very, very different in each of these markets, right? So our focus is to serve our customers better, rather than expanding into multiple markets. I'll give you examples, right? I spoke about, for example, in Malaysia, one problem that we have seen is with regards to affordability. There is a huge supply overhang, which is a problem over there. Loan rejections happen. So one thing that we are working on over there is how can we help customers find properties that they can actually afford, right? And not just search, right? So, can they figure out before they even start searching a property, right? This falls within my budget. This is what I can afford in terms of a loan. And then only look at those properties which meet those criteria, right? So we are trying to solve problems across our markets, and there are unique problems in each of these markets that we are trying to solve, and that's what our goal is.
Final question. The US-China trade tension, has that had any impact on your businesses? Ankiti, I'll start with you on that one. Because I know a lot of your manufacturers have been sourcing traditionally from China, so I just wonder if that's how that's playing out.
So I think even before the trade tensions, Southeast Asia and South Asia had started to emerge as really meaningful manufacturing hubs globally, especially for the United States. And we are cognizant of the fact that the trade tensions are creating a lot of confusion in the mind of brands. And many of them just want to switch over to non-China manufacturing just so that there is just a lot more visibility into what's going to happen. We actually don't recommend any knee-jerk reactions. It's important to think about what's going to happen long term, but it's definitely had an impact on business and in the way that we consult and recommend to our brands and businesses on how they should think about sourcing. So there's definitely an impact.
So are they sourcing now from other markets? And
many of them are very keen to very quickly move to other markets, and I think that's where sort of our recommendation comes in, which may differ in different situations and different categories on whether or not they should act so knee-jerk about it.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, and I wish you both good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.